Now, for more on this, I'm joined by Drew Fagan, who spent 12 years in leadership positions with the provincial and federal governments and now works with public affairs firm Mcmillan Vantage and teaches at the Munk School of Global Affairs in Toronto. Drew, are you surprised by this late-hour reprieve?
Matt, it's hard to be surprised by just about anything that Donald Trump does. Certainly in his first 2 weeks, in terms of domestic policy in the United States, he's been doing all sorts of things that broke rules. Why wouldn't he break rules, I suppose, with regard to us? We have a reprieve, as the previous report noted, but who knows where things go from here.
From the beginning, a lot of commentators have said Trump's negotiating. This is negotiating tactics. Is this another piece of evidence that maybe this was all just about negotiation?
Well, you know, we have a negotiation due next year with regard to an update to our free trade agreement with the United States and Mexico. So we've always been planning for that. We were planning for that regardless of who won the White House. What's surprising here is the way he came out with sort of guns blazing in a relationship where he's much more powerful than we are. We've always known that. But the relationship is still symbiotic. They get a lot from us as we get a lot from them. So the way he acted here in terms of, you know, both humiliating us in terms of the 51st state and trying to bring us to our knees with regard to tariffs didn't help anybody's interest. Let's hope that we can get back to a reasonable negotiation.
What do you think Trump's end game is here? Is this about Canada becoming the 51st state?
No, I don't actually think it is. What's interesting is he likes to punk people, but nobody else in his administration, in the one-on-one conversations with their Canadian counterparts, has been making that comment. So I think that's for public consumption in the United States, as I say, to punk people a little bit. But there is a negotiation to be done here. He does truly think that the relationship, the economic relationship, and not just the economic relationship, the defense relationship, and a series of others, including drugs and immigration, is unfair to the United States. Now, that's not really true, but there are issues to be dealt with, and we should get back to the table and negotiate them in a mature way. And let's hope that this is the first step back to a negotiation that would do that. There is reason to be dissatisfied with Canada's defense spending. Previous U.S. administrations have made the same point. He's just making it more bluntly, and we ourselves know that we need to do more, as one example.
So Trudeau this afternoon, he put a post out on X outlining what he's going to do in this new plan with Donald Trump. He talks about 10,000 frontline personnel, lots of promises to beef up our border. Do you think this plan will appease Trump, or is he just going to come back with more asks and more threats?
It's hard to know, but I think it probably was overdue as well for us to be doing more on the border. That was being talked about in the fall by the Republican candidate, by Trump, and by people who spoke on his behalf. It's interesting that the 10,000 soldiers or officials is the same number that Mexico promised today with regard to the southern border. But again, this is something that we should be negotiating. Part of the negotiation should be what they can do with regard to reducing the flow of illegal weapons to Canada, for example. This is a reasonable negotiation to make the trade as free as possible, investment as well, but also in terms of legality and crime coming across the border. It's two-way, and we want a two-way negotiation in everybody's interest.
Last question for you, Drew. Do you think these tariffs eventually still come into place?
Well, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. It depends on exactly what happens over the next 4 weeks, what satisfies him to predict what Trump is going to do. And the key part here is he's acting unbound. You know, Congress, which is in Republican hands, isn't standing up to him in any way. American business isn't standing up to him, and it was not in their interest to have the tariffs. So hopefully some reality will return, and it won't happen, but it's impossible to predict.
That's Drew Fagan from Mcmillan Vantage in Toronto. Drew, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Matt.